Welcome back to the first ever Angua LATD Spooktacular. As always, I am RG from the 843, and I'm joined by my co-host.
This is your boy King J. A little disclaimer: I may sound a little nasally because I am a little congested and I've been crying a little bit. So there you go. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm just joking. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Shoot, today we'll be looking at the details of
Alien, classic horror movie.
Yes,
Legendary, groundbreaking, landmark title in both not only the horror genre but the science fiction genre as well. As a part of our month-long horror marathon, we're gonna be reviewing horror movies all month long, all month long on the channel. So if y'all want to tune in, we're going to be giving reviews all month long. We can give our thoughts on some classic horror movies, some horror movies that are coming out this month, and just, whatever we feel like doing at the time. But let's get into it. So, starting off, Alien. Ridley Scott.
Yes, sir. Starring Sigourney Weaver.
Yes, sir. A legendary movie came out in 1979, and this movie really was, at the time, considered to be one of, if not the scariest horror movie of all time.
At the moment.
Yeah, for sure. And this movie's success really launched a legendary franchise that has continued and endured for almost 50 years now. Alien Romulus just came out this year.
Fire movie.
Just reviewed it. Probably top 5 movie of the year, at least for me.
Sir.
And really, this franchise really was revolutionary because not only was it probably one of the first horror movies in space, it just also launched the career of Sigourney Weaver, who went on to have a successful career in Avatar and just all kinds of other movies. So, this movie has a place in many people's heart as one of the first horror movies that they saw as a kid. And I think what it may be most famous for is the introduction of the legendary xenomorph.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Which has become one of the most iconic, not just horror movie like monsters, but also just one of the most iconic aliens in all of not just cinema but entertainment /
all of fiction.
Yeah, for sure. And so the plot of this movie is that how do I say it? I mean, most people, if you haven't seen it, what it is a group of space explorers / travelers are on their way back to Earth. They are on the Nostromo, and what they are generally tasked with, I think they're employed by Weyland-Yutani in this movie. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Weyland-Yutani, and then the AI is named like Mother or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So basically, they wake up from cryo sleep, they eat and everything. They explore sort of this abandoned ship or whatever, and they find a life form more terrifying than anything they've ever encountered in all of fiction.
Of course,
in all of space, I guess you could say.
You're right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You good?
But of course, there's going to be a spoiler review. This movie's been out since 40 years?
Almost 50.
Almost 50 years. Okay, there we go. So yeah, I this is the first time I ever watched this movie this year. Well, in general, really, but this is the first year I've ever watched this movie at all. And I see why a lot of people loved it. I loved it, honestly.
I think the thing about this movie that works is the atmosphere and the tension that it builds. Because I think Alien, especially now, a lot of people kind of think of it as what it became with Aliens. Because with Aliens, that was more of an action movie. That was where it took the concept of one xenomorph and revved it up to like 1,000. And it was just basically a shoot 'em up sort of sci-fi action movie. And I think that's kind of what people think of Aliens now. They just think of like the colonial Marines running and gunning and everything. But the original Alien was much more of a horror movie. And you really see like this, because what I really think that made this movie great was that it was one xenomorph versus just this small crew of space explorers that encounters something that they have no idea how to fight. This thing is supposed to be the perfect life form as described by Ash in the movie.
Right. Who turns out to be a AI character. AI, I'm tripping. And like an android type character.
Yes. Who was actually, spoilers or whatever, who was actually his prime directive is to bring back the xenomorph for analysis, evaluation, and the crew was basically expendable.
Right, exactly. And that's the messed up part about the whole movie, because the movie sets up the crew members as like friends, as comrades,
Compatriots, yeah.
Right. And one thing I'm about to do is probably compare it a lot with Romulus that just came out this year. Mm-hmm. It is very much almost night and day to Romulus, because the thing is about this movie that I love, that it controlled the tension way more. Like, it takes a while. I'm sorry. It takes a while to get to the plot itself. But the thing is, everybody, it's like it builds up tension because everybody knows that something's going to happen. They just don't know when and where.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually what I was about to bring up. The thing about this movie is that, like I said, a lot of people have this perception of Aliens as being like this big action-heavy franchise, but really it started as a horror movie. And the way that this movie builds up the tension and the atmosphere, it takes its time to really introduce its characters and kind of build that sort of isolated, sort of in space, no one can hear you scream tag. Like, this movie does a really good job of selling. That was the original tagline: in space, nobody can hear you scream. And this movie does a really, really good job of really building that up and really setting that up. So by the time we get to the xenomorph, it's actually relatively not later in the movie, but it's towards the second act near when we really see the xenomorph. And you really
could possibly say the third, really.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And that's what really makes this movie work, is that the creature itself, the xenomorph, it starts off first, as many people famously know, at first it's a face hugger. So it latches onto your face and implants the xenomorph from within. And then there's the chest burster.
Right.
And then after that, it eventually scatters off and it becomes the xenomorph that we famously know.
And another thing I liked about this movie is, like, Ash would act sketchy all the time, especially when the face hugger appeared. Because the thing is, when it latched on to, I forgot his name, when it emerged from dude's chest, right? Parker was about to kill it, the black guy. Parker was about to kill it, but Ash is telling him, no, don't kill it. But why not? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So that's one thing that this movie does a really good job of, is like setting up Ash as this shifty sort of individual that's really to not be trusted.
Right.
And in the midst of the chaos, the crew doesn't really realize how sketchy he is until later on, when Ripley, played by, of course, Sigourney Weaver, goes in Mother's sort of database, like main room, and starts asking questions regarding the xenomorph. And she discovers that the prime directive by Ash is to capture the xenomorph and bring it back for testing and for analysis. And so I really enjoy how this movie does a really good job of building its atmosphere, sort of slowing the pace down. Like you said, you don't really see the xenomorph itself, which of course the xenomorph is the main thing everybody goes to see an alien movie for. You don't really see the xenomorph until, like you said, basically the third act. At first it's the face hugger and then the chest burster. And then by the third act, you finally see the xenomorph, like this thing that's being hyped up as this perfect organism, this perfect life form. You see it in full. And when you finally do, it really pays off, because it feels like the movie is finally, sort of, I guess, rewarding you with your patience.
Right, exactly. And like I said, I didn't feel bored watching this movie, even in the first act, when we were just getting to know the characters.
Yeah, it's a lot of dialogue and there's a lot of slow stuff in the first act, second act even, but it really does a good job of making you feel connected to these characters and making you feel, relate. Like, it makes you feel like you can relate to them. They're not necessarily anybody special. They're just random people that are just workers.
Exactly. They're just here to do a job and to go back home.
Basically, they have friends, presumably. They have family. So, you can put you can put yourself in these people's shoes, and you can relate to them, and you can understand where they're coming from. They're just trying to survive.
Exactly. And that was the biggest difference with Romulus that I noticed, because the main characters, you don't really care much for them other than, what's her name? other than the main character herself and
Basically,
Andy.
yeah.
Because one of them is a straight up jerk.
Literally.
And then all of them are kind of like shady in their own way. But you already know they ain't supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
So when all of them were like got unalived and everything.
For sure, yeah.
I didn't care. I didn't really care much about them.
That's what I said.
Like I said, the movie's still great, but it's just I didn't care about those characters.
And see, that's one thing that I think this original Alien movie does do better than Alien Romulus. One thing I do like about Romulus that obviously, with the technology being better, being as though it's nearly 50 years later, obviously they do a lot more to really enhance the effects with the xenomorph and make it really feel like this apex predator. Whereas with Alien, they were limited in their technology, and it shows because, like I told you when we were watching the movie last night.
Yeah, this big dude in a suit.
Yeah, literally, like watching the movie. Because the thing is that I imagine this movie was scary in 1979, but us being how old we are, growing up where effects were better and just the way people made film, just in general, just had improved so much. Watching this movie for us, it's enjoyable for what it was. It's still a very well-made movie.
Oh yeah.
But the horror aspect of it, it's just not scary. For me personally.
I agree. It's not scary.
Because like I said, you could tell it was somebody in the suit because like even, I think it was Parker. Was it Parker? Or
no, it was the captain.
Yeah, Dallas. It was Dallas.
The captain.
When Dallas is in like the air ducts and he's looking for the xenomorph, and they see on the radar that the xenomorph is coming towards him, and he like climbs down. He climbs down the ladder to a lower part of the air ducts and everything, and the xenomorph basically just like and it just looks ridiculous because you could tell it's a nigga in a suit.
Like
you can see his arms, like the way he moves.
Like Dave Chappelle, gotcha, bitch. Yeah, like that's the biggest thing that I noticed.
And then also in other scenes, you can see like the way the alien, the xenomorph, stands up. He looks like a human, like he's standing upright casually like a human.
And he whips his tail around. He just turns, the guy in the suit just turns around, and it's just like that joke was funny.
It's like, and it's no shade to the movie itself because it was the technology at the time. It's still a very well made, well executed movie. Great story, great performances, great characters. But boy, was this thing funny in parts.
Yeah,
just because of how ridiculous it looked. That xenomorph, like compared to the ones we see in Romulus, ain't nothing. That thing didn't scare me. That xenomorph had me feeling like I could fight it, to be honest.
Exactly. Yeah, come here. I got you. Nah, exactly. I'm gonna sneeze on you.
That xenomorph looked like he was squaring up. Like I said, he stood up right. He looked like he was about to
how he come at a guy?
This is what he did. Like he literally stood up and was like, "Yeah."
How he come at Dallas again?
He said, "Yeah."
Nah, but
he said, "Boom."
But like.
I said, "Are they serious with this?" Man?
He said, "My name Jeff."
I said, "This was scary in 1979."
No, I bet it was though, for real.
No, for sure. I'm sure back in the day, people they said people had nightmares about this movie, about the xenomorph back in the day.
Well, shoot, wait almost 50 years later,
over 50 years later, we laughing at that. But yeah, no, that's no detriment to the movie itself.
Not at all.
It's still a masterpiece of both science fiction and horror. It put Ridley Scott on the map, I guess you could say. Put Sigourney Weaver on the map. Launched one of the greatest and most influential science fiction franchises of all time, whose influence is still felt every single day, whether it be in Mass Effect, whether it be in
Dead Space.
Yeah, like it took so much, because it essentially created the horror science fiction subgenre. Mm-hmm. It basically, because when you really think about it, there's not really too many other films. I mean, you know what? I lied. There were films that dealt with horror and science fiction, but the way that this movie did it, with that confined sort of like atmosphere, claustrophobic feeling,
right?
That was revolutionary for its time.
Another thing that I liked about it, especially, is that they didn't play any music until dang near the end, if that.
Facts.
They didn't play any music. If nobody was talking, you wouldn't hear a thing.
Yeah,
really just selling the nobody can hear you in space.
Facts. They really sold you on that paranoia. Like, it made you feel like this thing could be
anywhere.
It could pop out from any like corner, any hallway, whatever the case may be. So it just did a really good job of keeping, and that's what really works the best for me. Despite this movie being old, what really still works for me is the characters, just the direction, and the atmosphere.
You're right. I agree.
For 1979, Ridley Scott was very, very ahead of his time.
Oh yeah, very much so, man. Like we said, regardless of the effects, regardless of the effects and all this changing weather, this movie still remains like a top tier horror movie in my opinion. I only saw it this is my second time seeing it this year.
And it holds up. I saw this movie as a kid many, many times, and it still holds up to this day.
Right.
Classic movie.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like, if I had to give it a rating, I mean, I don't think we should rate these, but why not? If I had to give it a rating, I'd probably give it about a high heat.
For sure, definitely give it a heat. I'd highly recommend to anybody who hasn't seen it, which if you ain't seen the original Alien, what are we doing, man?
Right.
It's 2024.
Especially if you're a movie buff like us.
Yeah, you ain't got no excuse. What are you doing? Matter of fact, actually, I lied. Don't turn this video off because we need that view. Yeah. But after it's done, do yourself a favor, rent it, buy it, whatever the case may be.
Buy it, mix it.
You gotta experience Alien, man. Come on now. It's horror. It's like Halloween. It's spooky season. You know, it's the perfect time to watch it. It's the perfect atmosphere. So come on now, let's get to it.
Yes, sir. But shoot, with that being said, man, I've been Jay.
This has been Rodney.
We're LATD, y'all. Remember, look at the details. Go enjoy Alien Romulus. Still great. Both two great movies.
Bringing horror reviews all month long, so be on the lookout for that.
Oh, what we got next?
It's a surprise. It's a secret.
Bet.
We'll see.
But
we haven't decided yet, to be honest with you.
Exactly. But
it's a surprise to us too.
Okay. But with that being said, man, remember, y'all, look at the details. Peace.